Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make this dice tray and matching travel pouch. This is the first installment of my mini tutorial series. This is made specifically for both carrying your dice and for rolling heavy duty dice such as metal ones. Because of the half double crochet pattern, everything will stay flat when you roll it. Please subscribe if this helps you, and good luck. Take a moment to pause and take screenshots of the written pattern. Everything is also posted on my Instagram at the time this video goes up. This is just here so you can reference it as you're making your projects. All you'll need today is 2 weight 4 yarns, about 100 grams each, and a 5mm hook. You're going to start by lining up your 2 different yarns, and this is something that not a lot of people are familiar with, so don't worry about trying to twist your yarn or anything, just hold them next to each other in your hand. You're basically going to be doing everything the same way you would crochet normally, just with these 2 thick pieces up against one another. It might take some getting used to, but you'll very quickly find that it's a lot easier than you think. You're going to be starting with the magic ring, and I recommend leaving some slack if you're not used to this method before. If you've never made a magic ring, by the way, I want you to follow these steps carefully. They're written down below, but also I have an entire video explaining it because I know some newer crocheters have a hard time with it. You're simply just wrapping it around your fingers, pulling the bottom loop through, and then making a single chain afterwards. When you're done, you're going to readjust your yarn so it doesn't go cross inside of your circle, and after this point is when we're going to begin adding things inside of the little magic ring. Just add 1 extra chain so we can get started. Your next step is to add 12 half double crochets inside of the magic ring hole. If you've never used a magic ring, just crochet as if it were one giant stitch that you're putting 12 little stitches into. Also, don't get confused, you'll have these 6 loops instead of just 3 like a normal half double crochet, just because you have the 2 pieces of yarn stuck to each other. It'll take some getting used to the tension and also just simply holding that much yarn in your hand at once, but once you move slowly enough, you'll practice it and you'll get a lot better. Also, please don't worry about the actual magic ring hole. At the very end of this project is when we're going to tighten it all together. You can just adjust it as you go to make it more comfortable for yourself. Once you've made it all the way around, you're going to find that first half double crochet you made and very carefully slip stitch inside of it. This part is also going to take some getting used to because you want to make sure you're going through all of the yarn, not just through the white one or the red one or whatever color it is that you're using. When you're done with that, you are going to chain 1, and that is the end of our first row. Again, I recommend tightening your piece here, but don't worry about making it perfect. We're not going to adjust it all until the very end of the project. So if it starts to loosen a bit as we go on, please don't worry about it. We'll get to it later. Your next step is to crochet 2 half double crochets inside of every stitch that we just made. At the end of this row, you will have 24 half double crochets. Just be very careful as you're going to make sure once again that you're going through both the red and white stitches, or again, whatever color it is that you're using. So long as you move through this part carefully, it'll come a lot easier to you as you go. To end this row, and the same way we'll be ending every row, you're going to do 1 slip stitch and 1 chain. This will make it so that way you have a little bit of an easier time when you're connecting your pieces together. And again, feel free to adjust the hole as you go, just don't worry about it too much until the end. Rows 3 and 4 utilize a very simple increasing pattern. The gist is to do 1 half double crochet, then 2 in the following stitch, and then the row afterwards, you're going to increase it by doing 1, then 1 again, then 2. So at the end of all this, you should have 48 half double crochets. Once you are done with those 2 rows, you're moving on to row 5, which is where you're going to be making the D20 points. I'm going to start by half double crocheting 8 times. That's because 48 divided by 6 is 8. That's where we get our points from. Once you're done with those 8, you're going to chain 2 and then half double crochet again into that same stitch that you just were working in. Whenever you use this sort of chain 2 or chain 3 pattern into one stitch, it creates a little point at the end of it. In my star back tutorial, we do a very similar shape just with 5 points for a star. Once you're done, you're going to continue that pattern all the way around, slipping and chaining 1 to finish it all off. Just to show you this slip stitch because it might be a little tricky since we're coming from another point, make sure that you very carefully go into that first half double crochet of the row. It is imperative to your points here that you're not overlapping with anything, and that final stitch that we just made ends up being the corner. After you slip stitch, of course, just make sure you do your chain 1 at the end and push your piece down to make sure that it has the right shape. For your next row, you're going to half double crochet all the way to that corner that we just made in the last row. Once you get to this point here, you're going to add 2 half double crochets, then 1 chain, and then 2 more half double crochets. This works to keep the corner where it is, as well as to expand it in the next row without the sides flipping up on us. Simply the same way that we would do those increasing rows for the circle, this time we're just doing it keeping the points in mind on the ends. And of course I'm keeping this part slow just so that way you guys have a really good visual to follow for the rest of this piece. Simply, you're just half double crocheting up to the corner, then doing 2, then chaining 1, then 2 more, and those last are all in 1 stitch. Once you're done, your tray should look a lot like this. After you flatten it out, it'll have some very distinct points, and we're ready to build the sides. I end up doing 5 rows of this, but you can do as many as you see fit, just half double crocheting once into each stitch to build sides up. In my opinion, it's the most relaxing part since you're just sitting there not counting anything. And once you're at the end of that final row, you'll do your chain 1 and then cut your yarn, pulling it all the way through like so. The shape will be a little funky because we need to flip it inside out, but just weave in your ends first so that way you won't see them after the finished product is done. You can use a darning needle. I prefer to use a hook as per usual. Once you're done with this, flip your project and pull the tail of your magic ring as taut as you possibly can. From here, you can use whatever method you see fit, but I just use my hook to create 2 little knots, one on the first side and then one across from it. Doing this just makes me feel like it's extremely secure, which I'll do before I cut the yarn and then weave that end in as well. Again, you can do this however you see fit or however you're the most comfortable with weaving in your ends, but this is the way that I love doing it the most. Now we can finally flip it inside out and then put our sides together to make a perfect little dice tray. I recommend just folding the corners up with your fingers a little bit, and that'll really make the points super distinct and match the D20 shape that we came up with. Bit of advice, the taller you make your piece, the harder it will be to maintain those sides, so it's totally up to you how tall you want to make it, just keep that in mind as you go. For the next part of this video, we are going to make our little pouch. Starting with just 1 strand this time, you're going to make a very simple slip knot and then a chain of just 8. This part of the project is very simple, but I think it's really convenient to have a little bag that you can take with you whenever you're using your dice. After you chain all 8 stitches, you're going to simply skip the last 2 chains and do a double crochet into that 6th stitch that you made. We're going to be skipping 2 because that maintains the length of the double crochet as you're making it. After you're done with this, also very simple, you're just going to double crochet 5 more times until you've made it all the way across your row. There should be 6 total once you're done. Once your piece looks like this, you're going to want to add 2 more double crochets into that last stitch to make the little rounded edge that we want. So total, when you look in that stitch when you're done, there should be 3 double crochets just sitting there in the end stitch. And after you've added all of those in, you're going to continue working into the back stitches of this row, again just going 6 times across. And if you're like me, I recommend weaving in that end as you go. Of course you can do it later, but I think it always looks a bit nicer to take care of it while you're making it. And then once you hit the other side, add an extra 2 double crochets into that last stitch as well, right before you slip stitch into the end of the row. Again, this is just to keep that really cute circular or almost oval-like edge, and it will make your pouch look a little bit more pouchy instead of boxy or like a wallet. Like I said, when you're done with that, find your first double crochet so you can slip stitch the row shut, and then you're just going to want to chain 2 to finish up. For the next row, you are doing the exact same thing. I just want to point out exactly where you're going to be doing your extra 3 stitches. If you look into where you did the double crochets in the last row, you want to find that middle double crochet where the 3 were and add your next 3 into that one. This ensures that your little rounded edges are in the same spots so you have a nice oval instead of a weird circle, like a bumpy circle. Once you're done, slip stitch and chain 2 to finish up. And then if you're just copying exactly what I did, I do 6 rows of 1 double crochet in each stitch, slipping and chaining 2 at the end of each of them. Of course, you can change the height if you would like to. I recommend chaining 1 for your last stitch, so after you do your slip stitch, chain 1 and then cut your work. After cutting your yarn, weave in your end however you see fit, and then you're pretty much done. Just flip the bag inside out. Like I said, you can also make it a little bit taller if you don't like this exact height. The very final step here is to just make the little drawstring part of this, using your other colored yarn from earlier to make a slip knot and a chain however long you like. Since I'm just using a scrap piece here, I don't have to cut any yarn, but you would just end it the same way you normally do with a chain 1 and pull through when you're done. You want to leave these little pieces on the end so they almost look like shoelaces. Just trim them to be even if you like that look a little bit better. If you want to make those ends a little fancier, you can, but I'm going for a very simple traveler's pouch look here. When you're done, you just want to weave in that little lace that you made, either skipping every other stitch or every 3 stitches as you go. This will create a very nice and even drawstring, either needing to pull it through a 1 DC gap or no gap at all at the very end. Just make sure that both of your ends are facing the outside when you're done so you can pull it tight as much as you need to. That is all, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if this video helped you. I post new videos on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Not all of them are this short. Also, please check out my Instagram and Depop where you can buy the things I make. If there's anything you want to see specifically, please leave me a comment and I'll get to it. Bye bye, everyone.